Welcome to Metaphysical Happy Hour. I am your co-host, Cassie Clayton, and Joy.
So today I am Joy Koff, and I am the owner of Miracles of Joy, and I am filling in for Tracy today.
Yes, Tracy is traveling, and we wish her all the best. And I am so excited that you are able to come in and join us this evening, Joy. So I really appreciate you just because we've had you on the show before, and we just always love having you over here. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes. So before we really get started, we always kind of like just chit chat, kind of see how things are going. So tell us a little bit, a little bit of shameless plug time. So tell us all the things that are happening with you, your store, all the things.
Okay, so Miracles of Joy is in Lewisville, Texas, and now we have moved everything online. So everything that we have in our storefront is you can now purchase online at miraclesofjoy.net. Yay!
That's exciting.
That is really exciting. A lot of work, but it was very exciting.
Yeah. So tell everyone where they can come find you.
They can come find me in Lewisville, Texas, and my address is 701 South Old Orchard Lane, Suite C, Lewisville, Texas, 75067. You can also give us a call if you have any questions, 972-221-8080. And some of the things that we do at Miracles of Joy is we bring out-of-town guests, we offer classes, workshops besides a metaphysical store, and we also do sacred journeys on an annual basis.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. And I love it when you all are promoting the sacred journeys as well, because those seem so cool. I want to go in there.
Our next one is actually going to be to Teotihuacan, Mexico, and it's the last week of September. So that's coming up.
Very, very cool. Very cool. So, and then of course, for me right now, we've got lots of expansion and lots of things happening for stargazers. So that's kind of cool. Got some new services coming out and whatnot. So that's always awesome. Tonight we've got a special guest with us, and we're going to be talking all about the dream and dream analysis and all of the really awesome and amazing things that come along with that. So we're going to welcome Chelsey to the show. Chelsey.
Hello. Hi, guys.
Hey, Chelsey.
How is everyone tonight?
Pretty good. Welcome, welcome.
Yeah, excited to be here.
So Chelsey, why don't you introduce yourself and tell our audience a little bit about you?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm Chelsey Turpening Coxsey. I am a dream analysis coach, Carl Jung enthusiast, and I love metaphysics, obviously. Dreamland gets very metaphysical, so I really enjoy the lane and space. I often find that when I work with my clients, they usually express things to me they wouldn't to their therapist, which is fun. I enjoy having such a safe space to really explore a lot of different aspects of belief systems and perceptions of reality.
So Chelsey, why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Okay, so I am on Facebook. I'm pretty active on there. I also have a website, which I think is shared somewhere with the podcast, but it's ChelseyTurpeningCoxsey.com. You can find a lot of my creative works on there, as well as the dream analysis aspect. So it's got a mix of both. Because I am an author too. And my book is based off of my dream analysis and my shadow work. This is just is one. I've got two others that are not printed yet, but it's Living Life Metaphorically. Sorry, trying to get in the camera just right. So I got some of that on there too, which is very a good, I don't know, writing is very therapeutical and channeling. So for me, it started out with writing my own and going through my own journey, awakening, and then learning to bring this space for other people.
So let me ask you, how did you get started in dream analysis? Like, what was the big aha moment for you that says, this is what I want to be as a dream coach?
Well, it kind of came in like phases, because I was kind of arguing or battling it a little bit. Because I was like, Chelsey, who are you to be, someone as a sort? But I practiced with myself for a while. So it took a few years, but I've always had really intense dreams. and things that felt very metaphysical are out there. I'm just like, what is going on? So my dreams always had my attention in a weird way. But I have to say, before my official, like actually through awakening, but probably through like the shadow soul work, dark night of soul, I really started to notice that there were certain aspects of my dreams that were repeating a lot and showing patterns, but they weren't always the same. So I was journaling and logging them for quite some time, for a few years at that point. And I realized that I started really seeing a very large perspective picture of not just internal work for my own benefits of my exiled aspects of my shadow, but really pulling out some interesting metaphysical aspects of my soul too. And that really just, so like I held that all to myself, and I wrote about it in my book, which ended up kind of being bits and pieces of a book for myself. But it wasn't until later I got into mental health. And when I got into mental health, I had this idea, or my subconsciousness had this idea a little bit, that I was going to do dream analysis or something with dreams, because I've always loved Carl Jung, and I'm just a Carl Jung enthusiast a little bit on my own. So it was a lot of things that kind of came together, and it was like, I think my ego was a little afraid of it. But the other aspects of my identity were like, no, this is what we're going to do. And it kept showing it over and over again. So for me, I do feel it was a soul calling. I very much love symbolism, not just in the individual, but on the mass collective and throughout history. So I'm a bit of a nerd. And I feel like it just all really came full circle, especially after I started coaching, and I was a little afraid to just be a dream analysis coach. I tried to do a few other things bundled into it. And I realized, I have to jump into it and just embrace it. And since I did that, it's insane.
So I want to talk a little bit, because shadow work is one of those words that's thrown out there.
Yeah.
So I want to explain it to our audience who's out there, who's listening to this. We all have a shadow side. So what is shadow work? We all know our limitations and what our ego stops us from moving forward. So people who actually assist you, or I'll call them shadow coaches, actually assist you to overcoming those challenges so you can live your life more pure, more connected to spirit, more connected to your guides. Is that your take on it as well?
Yeah, I just got chills when you're saying that. I'm like, yep, that's it in a nutshell, literally.
Okay. I think what happens is it's just a word out there that people don't really understand what it means. So it's sometimes putting some context around it. I want to talk a little bit about dream interpretation, because, from my own experience when in doing this metaphysical work for 18 years, and my own personal experience, I used to say I have dreams and I have real dreams.
Yeah.
Does that kind of dreams are the ones that are, kind of fragmented and they're out there. But my real dreams, to me, that's when spirit was actually connecting with me to give me messages. So let's dig a little deep about certain symbolism and certain types of dreams. So, and how that actually helps someone move forward.
Yeah. So I break them down into two categories, and you already mentioned them, but I kind of came up with my own terms for them. So I realized everyone does their own thing. I call them metaphorical, for internal aspects of your emotional experiences and everything, processing your personal base, right? And I call that your internal. It's even like when you're dreaming, it feels like it's really just inside within yourself. It doesn't have other entities always, or this spiritual thing going on. Metaphysical dreams will be the second one, and those are very different. And they tend to analyze differently, but it's so beautifully woven that the symbolism reading between the two different styles really reflect internal and outward like a mirror. So but sometimes the metaphysical ones are very straightforward, but at first, and then later when you look at it, you really start to see more in-depthness to it too. So it's interesting, but yeah, I do break them down into two. When I work with my internal dreams, or the metaphorical ones, I break them down. I've noticed that a system that I use the most is the internal family system by Gary Schwartz. It's basically breaking down all of your internal aspects into different personality or different voices. They each hold their own. So you have like your inner child, your higher self. You'll have like your feminine and masculine. And throughout life, we seem to manifest more. The ego is also one too. And so they each get in depth. So I've noticed that when I first start doing dream analysis with people, depending on where they're at spiritually, because I realize if you've been through shadow work, you might not always be coming to me with internal family system work. It might be more metaphysical at that point. But I've noticed with a lot of my clients that I'm working with currently, we do have a mix of both. But I work with a lot of internal family system, which it's a great book called No Bad Parts. It breaks that down. That one was a huge one when I started doing dream analysis, because we do see a lot of symbolism with each part, and they carry themselves different. They could use a color, a different aspect or feeling. Each person's symbolism is very unique. So I can't sit here and say it's black and white, because it is not at all. But you can usually track patterns with the internal aspects. You get ideas on inner balances, issues, if there's a need. Like someone who has a bad feminine state might have dreams where they're really going to start seeing a lot of things pulling towards that. If it's like a woman that looks like a haggard and old and angry drunk or something, or just something really vile, they show themselves interesting. Sometimes they're mysterious though, and it's not always in your face though either. And they plant little things, little seeds in dreams. One client I noticed, when it came to the internal aspect, his feminine state took it from internal dreams even to metaphysical dreams. And it got really in depth with like aliens and other things, but it was the idea that she is, like it was a redheaded woman who's chained up by a lizard alien, and she asked him for help telepathically in the dream, right? And he was like, oh, can we, I don't know. And they're like, don't push the red button. And they told him not to. And at the end of the time, it was always, you have a choice. It was a theme. So like, it wasn't always something specific that made sense. But when we realized who she was, we were able to go back through like 5 or 6 months worth of dream journals and really break down the color of red and themes of division or families, or like it just took all the symbolism of other dreams that already made sense and built on top of it with the hidden identity who was speaking through randomly the whole time. She was even walking through behind a window in a restaurant, writing her name on the window casually and walking away. She wasn't even a feature of the dream. But she stood, it's weird things like that. So it gets very interesting with dream symbolism, because we have a mass collective symbolism, which usually stands out. And I know that, people like dream dictionaries, and it's good to have stir the pot and get an idea of what something could mean, but everyone holds something a little different or an attachment to that. So you really have to dive into that person and their perception of reality a little bit and figure it out together. So it is very much a teamwork when it comes to the internal aspects.
So if someone comes to you, is this the kind of session that they actually get? Like they'll come to you and they'll ask you a question, like they want you to help them interpret their dream. Is that pretty much the sessions that you offer people? Or what
Yeah. Well, people come for different reasons.
Right.
Recently, I had someone come to me because he thought there was a demon manifesting into his physical life. So it was a very specific need, and he knew that he was already held a lot of awareness in his dreams, and he was already doing the work on his own, but he wanted a coach. So that was really interesting and different, and I very much enjoyed it because I like demonology a little bit. I've been known to study it. So when I was helping him, it was very interesting, like 20 years worth of dreams, and it was getting to the point where it was not an internal demon. And we tracked the patterns, which he was already tracking, but when he pulled it all to me, I saw the demon wants to play with you. So like someone in that sense had a very specific concern, but it's something he would not have gone to a therapist about. So it's him seeking it was very specific, but I think when people struggle with their dreams, they either want the self-discovery of dreams, which I'll sell as a self-discovery, but I think a lot of people who hold awareness in dreams already, they're seeing a lot of this stuff and it's confusing them. So like they're coming with specific things.
How do you actually link their dreams and what's being given to them in dreams to their spirit guides or their spirit team or their angels?
I encourage them to connect, and we usually get results.
Okay.
And those are wild.
Can you analyze some of the dreams that talk about, this is actually their guide speaking to them in their dream. This is really their angels speaking to them in that dream.
I usually get a sense on my own a little bit. That's why I said I've been practicing a little psychic, which I think helps to be in tune, to recognize, because most of the time when the dreamer knows what's them or what's not them. And yeah, an internal aspect of yourself can be very disconnected and seem like it's not you, while still trying to give you hints that it is you. But at the end of the day, when you're dreaming, if you can go lucid, it's ask, are you me? Does it feel like you? Can you control it? Is it another conscious aspect that's not of you? Usually you can tell. So when I was getting off track a tad bit. But when it comes to like entities and spirit guides, they have a certain approach, and they prove it's them by teaching you or showing you something, and it comes out like telepathically, and it's a certain vibe that I don't think other energies would be able to mimic per se. It's just weird, but from my gut, I feel that. So like we've had a few where like, so I do see a lot of aliens in dreams.
I do too.
Yeah, and they're usually guides. And they try not to freak people out, so they don't always show themselves that often. But they do give hints. And one client who's been with me the longest, I call him my poster child a little bit. But he did the whole phasing of internal work, which was like phase 1. And then phase 2 really led into a lot more soul work. And immediately I thought he would get a break, and his subconsciousness did not allow a break. It just immediately went into the aliens. So his first one was he couldn't see them, but he could. I don't know. You'd have to ask him. He's so much better from the first person, right? But he was with the aliens, and they were telling him about the wars of Earth or over Earth, and how 2 alien races have been at odds and having some conflict here over the planet. One is good, one is bad. And the idea that certain humans were sent here with special abilities to help raise the planet. He doesn't know anything about starseeds. So for him, this was very organic information. Like, he was very confused, and he was like, what does this mean? And I was like, well, I know what that means. But I'm trying to lead him into having it come about organically too. But yeah, it came out pretty intense. And then he had another dream, maybe a few nights later, where the same alien was trying to pretend to be a woman, but her hand slipped out and it was blue. And I knew that was very much probably Arcturian, because I kept getting Arcturian vibes a lot from that one. But basically he had set the intention that week to meet his guides, and they came with this information, and they were telling him that like ideas of reading energy from the earth, to pull it with your hand and to read with the colors, and between a perception of reality between red and green, which I do think is very personal symbolism for his own a little bit. So I'm kind of curious what that would look like on a mass scale. But it's just things like this where we knew that he was getting close. So I told him, okay, set intentions to meet your guides. And it really just came out like a rolling ball. And those are not the only dreams. He's had plenty more with some good teachings from his guides.
So let's just talk about some unusual dreams that someone may have. And I'll kind of give you an example of one of the ones that I have, where I feel it was my subconscious telling me to overcome my fears. And then maybe I'll let you interpret it at that point. But I can remember at one point when I was on this path, and I was just getting started on this path, I had a dream one time that this guy was a serial killer. And I knew what he was doing. Like, I knew he was killing people. And I faced him. I literally pick up my phone and said, I'm calling the police and telling them what you're doing. And then I wake up from this dream. And how I analyze that, first I got really upset because it was like I was like really there and I was really watching it. But then part of that was it was time for me to face my fear. There were aspects of me that I was letting go that I was fearful of. And it was saying, no more. I'm taking my power back in this moment.
I think that's good. It sounds like then it's definitely an internal aspect of a dream. And it's funny you said you call the police, because when you look at the internal family system, he breaks the parts of the ego down as firefighters and managers or police officers. We're aspects within ourselves that manage the other exiled parts even a little bit, or sometimes they can be at odds within the system. But yeah, no, it definitely sounds like the serial killer in some sense is an aspect of yourself. And I know we all have the duality, so it's good to bring out, if it was a serial killer aspect of yourself, it would be good to really explore what that is exactly and how to bring it to wholeness. From what I understand, a lot of the times, parts of ourselves that we dislike need to be healed, and they usually get stuck at younger ages. But basically, if you think that all of your emotions and all of your parts are around you in a circle and you are the main one, you need to be the one that mediates and bring them back and into the system. They usually end up bringing their positive parts to the table versus the negative. And if they bring the negative, it's in balance and reason or justice. So it's like a lot of shadow work in the exiled aspects. I like that.
I would talk about, are any of them past lives? Like, are some dreams people actually getting glimpses of their past lives as well?
I do believe that. I haven't seen too many yet in my sessions, but anything is possible, and I'm always just waiting for the opportunity to have it cross my Zoom camera. But when it comes, oh, so sorry. I'm a little ADHD. I black out some. Not blank out a little bit. What was your question again?
My question was, are they past lives?
Yes. Okay. I have an example for this, and I felt it was the only one that I've seen so far that felt like a reference to past lives. If it didn't show it fully, but maybe in glimpses through a mirror. One client was doing a lot of internal work coming towards the end of the process, or maybe not the end, but like I call it a phase. It was definitely coming to some conclusion a bit. And he was running through a house, which a house is always a good one. It represents your internal system. Each room and hallways usually represent transitioning through something. So he's running down hallways and he kept seeing all these mirrors, right? And like at first he was admiring the house, but when he made it to the hallway with mirrors, he kind of got creeped out because at the end of the hallway was one big mirror, and it was like him in the mirror, which I describe it as his higher self was the vibes I was getting. And it was like he was not connected quite yet to his higher self. And he literally said, "Choose me." And he got whipped in a whirlwind of fear and ran down the hallway. And he said as he was running down the hallway, he noticed that in the mirrors were all the possibilities ever. He said it in a certain way, but it was just every possibility ever of existence for himself. And I was thinking, I was like, did you see any of the glimpses? Because I really feel like that would have been not just every possibility forward, but also every, like the whole picture. So I do feel like we'll be experiencing some of those soon with him. But I have not personally had it in a session. I felt like maybe I've had it myself personally, but I'm not quite sure yet, because I'm not sure if I was tapping into someone else's energy or if it was mine.
So I have some. Do animals, like, I actually followed a shamanic path at I still follow it on some level, and it's like animals actually mean things to me, and I have like animal speak book. I know what certain animals actually mean. If someone is dreaming about certain animals, does it follow that Native American path, or is it a different symbols or a different meaning?
I think it's good to understand certain mass collective ideas of these symbols. I also think it's important to first take it from your own personal connection to it and what it means in your life. And it's all within the context too. So that's why I was like, it's never really black and white, but animals are very symbolic, and it's such a common thing that, yeah, I think that's very important. Plus I know they show up metaphysically too. Bounce around.
So do you have your own interpretation of different animals?
Well, I do, and I have, yeah. So like for me, I have things of like a tick or a bug pops up a lot. I know that when I dream of spiders, they're usually a positive thing. When I dream of a tick, it's usually a warning or something negative or me being worried about something. But then when I look on it on a large scale or even metaphysically, I had a dog that passed away earlier this year, and I've been working with him a lot, and he's always kind of bouncing into my dreams. But I had this weird dream of an orca, which I didn't realize a couple weeks ago that the orcas are attacking boats, I guess. And I had a dream the night before I heard this, that in the daytime, that I was in a boat and I was watching orcas attacking boats. And I sat there and I just put my hand on a baby one. And like, for some reason, it kept reminding me of my dog. So I did some work because I realized he was bouncing around a lot. But it kind of went into some deeper concepts that I actually had to really look into to pull it together. But the idea that Octurians, I think my dog was an Octurian. Sorry, I giggle for anyone listening who's like, wait, what? I think he was like supposed to go in some odd way. I don't know, maybe it's a baby orca. It was very odd and symbolic. And I did not have anything for orcas. So it was like, I was like, this is not personable to me. But it was like I was the one watching it. It was important for me to see. So that's how that felt with that. But I know like animals are important. I do see often that also like one of my clients, his ego and shadow side do represent themselves as the wolves. And it's very much to the ego and the shadow. And I think Native Americans talk about the two wolves a lot, the silver and black wolf. So, and they showed themselves enough as the wolves that it was like they somehow just claimed that as how they wanted to represent themselves. So it's very interesting, really, how it works, because we do have our individual, but we do work with the mass collective, and archetypes show up all the time. So there's a lot going on on the mirroring aspect of the individual and the mass collective. It gets interesting.
So I want to just talk a little bit about a dream that I had and have you go ahead and interpret that. So I want to talk, I had this dream and it's just something that kind of stuck with me. And it would have been me, actually, I would have probably had the store about 7 years or 8 years at that particular time. And it was actually, I can see myself walking out on this land. I can't tell you if it's Earth or not. I'm just walking out, on this land, and I'm just standing there holding my hands out, and there's just water all around me. This water completely around me.
That was it?
That's it.
That's a hard one with not so much context to it. A lot of the times I would ask, what else did you dream that night? Because even the small fragments kind of lead or show a symbolic phasing that would give you.
I would have had other people's faces that were popping, and there were people that actually worked out of the store at that particular time.
And they
so
were
it would have
coming.
been different psychics and channels and mediums and people like that worked out of the store at that time.
Okay, and they were coming into that dream?
They were coming into that dream.
Yeah. It sounds like a very, I don't know if an astral projection would be accurate, but it does sound like there was a gathering of souls coming together. And that is common. I would say, like, we do have a front door. And if people don't realize you have a front door, you can be in an internal dream and someone else can come into your internal dream, right? Same as just walking out the front door and going into the realms or the astral realms. So like that gets very interesting to try to just to confirm, because even if it is a metaphysical dream, it could still represent something on an internal aspect still.
Okay.
So that's why I always say it's. So I guess I'll analyze one dream, but usually when I sit down with my clients, I'm like, all right, give me your dreams, and we cluster them together and we dig them out on a large scale and a small scale, because some dreams don't make sense until you see the fragments before them and you're like, oh my, okay, that makes more sense. And it's usually within the same night. But to say that it's not always one night. I noticed that they all give a large story over time. So they're always, this little puzzle pieces kind of going to something bigger. So I think what you had there is definitely on like an astral level or connecting, especially if everyone was on that level and it could just be an idea that they are in support here on the physical realm. Or are you guys, like, did they ever confirm that they met up with you that night?
I
That's always a
have
good
people,
question.
I have a lot of people that tell me I show up in their dreams.
Yeah, it's good to confirm and talk about it. I do it too. So I'm like, well, what did they say they were there? Or
I do have a lot of people that talk about me showing up in their dreams. You know, some of the dreams that I have, I call them, I don't know if I want to call them downloads or I want to call them, you know, something's happening on some sort of a level that may not necessarily be the physical level. I have had dreams where I am picked up into, like, I'm picked up in a spaceship, but it's not really a spaceship, it's a gold sphere. There's
Yeah.
a being there that looks human. Okay, it's not like it's an
alien.
alien. And I know that I'm actually on there and we go way out and we're sitting there and I can't remember what our conversation is, but I know that we're having a very detailed metaphysical conversation about something. And it can go on and then all of a sudden I'll come back and I wake up from that and I'll have someone walk in the next day and said, well, I had a dream about a gold sphere. And I'm like, me too. So, you know, part of it is I don't know what they actually mean. I sometimes think they're downloads on some level. That it's our spirit guides that are working with us on some level where they're downloading information that maybe we don't actually have to remember it.
It's still in there. The subconscious is the file cabinet. I always say it's in the file cabinet. And if you meditate or try to pull it back, some people do have success in that. But I think if it's something that wasn't supposed to be consciously processed, then it needs a good deep trigger a little bit to pull it back out. But I think triggers are important because I think it means it does come when it's needed and like divine timing. I had a dream last night that I lucid dream a lot. So last night I had a similar dream, but I wasn't on a spaceship. I remember working with my guides and it went fuzzy, but they kept expressing something to me several times. And what it was is something about a process of psychic abilities. And it was a 3-phase thing they kept trying to explain to me. And I wasn't fully waking up to be like, oh, I'm going to remember this. But in my sleep, I'd wake up and it'd be dark and I'd be like, I need to remember this. Or one time I was like, I need to message my friend Jeanette, who's also a psychic, and be like, I need to tell her about this. But then I would forget and I'd go back to sleep and I'd have it again. And it happened several times. So that's kind of how training works a little bit. Earlier in the year, I started having dreams where my guides were putting their hands on my eyes while I was sleeping. For months, they were doing this. And they were literally forcing me to use my third eye. Now they don't do the hand thing, but I've noticed that sometimes I'll just I'm not laying awake at night, but my third eye is awake and it's noticing the ceiling in my bedroom and it's just staring at the ceiling. And I know that my eyes are closed. So it's this thing that your guides are teaching you at night. It's weird. People study in their dreams. They've said it for many years, or, you always hear stories of somebody like, I learned this in a dream. Tesla spoke a lot about this as well. He was always learning things in his sleep.
Yeah, I actually can attest to that. Sometimes when I'm trying to figure out things with my computer, there's something I haven't done before, something like that. I'll be sitting there trying to figure it out, and then I'll go to sleep, and I'll wake up, and I'll be like, oh, really?
It's out. Like, I was like, let the subconscious do what it does.
And then I go back to my computer, and I'm like, oh, that's how you do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Or actually, it's interesting, Joy, that you were saying you have people who say, like, all the time, like, people find you in your dreams, because there's a coach that I work with quite regularly, and there are times where there's been a number of times where she has periodically shown up in my dreams.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just interesting, because I also remember one dream that I had just right before the pandemic happened, and it was like because this is kind of like a recurring dream that I have sometimes, where it's like the water gets like really really high, and it's like you never really, it's like you never end up on the part where you're getting tossed and tumbled around, but it's kind of like you're always on like the easy side of it. But there was this one wave that came by, and all of a sudden the water went, but I didn't go down. And I was like, I remember having this thought of, I've never been in this space, but like I've been in this dream before, but never in this space in this dream before.
Yeah.
And that was right before like the pandemic and all the things happened. So
this is a new space.
It
can hold so many meanings. I love dreams. I have to say, when my dreams woke me up, like it helped me shadow work. It helped me do my self-discovery. I learned to astral project and try to control it to an extent. I learned to lucid dream, which I was already lucid dreaming. I just learned to really understand all the differences and just bring awareness to it. While I was asleep, my dreams literally woke me up. And I think that's kind of a cool thing to say. You know, if everyone started really noticing what's going on in the human mind, there's a lot going on in our minds. And I think it's important to hold consciousness, and it is also fun and it's beautiful, and it can be really complicated. It can feel like a scavenger hunt sometimes, but I mean, you can get the same thing through the day with meditating and daydreaming and just allowing the conscious aspects to calm down or soothe out and let the subconscious kind of just take the platform. And I think that's why I love dreams so much, because it is an interesting way to do a subconscious dive, is what I call them. And I hope to get into hypnosis someday, but I think dreams is a really good start.
I also think that people shouldn't take dream dictionaries literal.
No.
Yeah. No.
And determining their dreams, because, you know, I'll give you a prime example. One of my power animals, when spirit wants to wake me up, a crow shows up. I had a pet crow when I was 13 that actually talked.
Oh, that's so cool. So you loved this bird. It holds a very good image for you.
So crows are very special. Whenever I needed a wake-up call, I will have a crow that will show up in the tree and just start screaming at me, looking right at me. So it's my way of spirit getting my attention. So when a crow shows up in my dream, it's a spiritual connection. But in every dream dictionary, crows have this negative tendency to them. So I think it's really important that you have to look at your personal life, your signs, your symbols, and apply it first, and throw away what the dream dictionary tells you.
I don't own a dream dictionary.
Symbol or that specific animal. If an animal means something very important to you, you need to determine what that means. If colors are very important to you, if they mean certain things to you, and the dream dictionary says this is what this color means, and you're saying, but my whole life it's meant this to me, you need to pull what it means to you.
It has to resonate. Always. I do not tell my clients what a dream means. I can have my own idea or my own personal experience through it. But at the end of the day, it is their perception of reality. And that is what it needs to resonate with and coexist with. And it's very interesting, because sometimes people think, oh, she's just telling people what they have. And I'm like, no, I don't. And at this point, I've got people who message me on a daily basis, that kind of like all around the world a little bit, giving me their dreams. And I don't know anything about them. And I don't have any context with these dreams. And it's a bit interesting, because it's like, well, I love analyzing them, and I will, but I usually try to pull something out and get them to go do the homework on their own. Think about it. I'll give you 2, 3, 4 ideas of what it could mean, or where it's at on like where it could resonate in an issue in your life. You know, like if it's a broken down car, maybe they're struggling with something, or if you feel like you don't have the wheel, maybe you need to locate that in your daytime life and see how you can make that adjustment. You know, people, it's funny, I follow a lot of dream analysis pages on Facebook, and some per country. So every country is a little different with how they'll do it. So I do mix a good mix of psychology and metaphysics into it. And I think that's a really good balance. when I go to places and try to like interact with like Africa, which I love Africa, and I've been really trying to get into it, and very metaphysical. But I noticed that a lot of the time, people who interpret dreams do it very matter of factly, and a majority of the time, it's like a demon's after you. And I'm like, what do you take home with that at all? You just like just go to church or pray to, like, there's no internal work with that. It's not usable. You really got to get in there, see what's going on. So a lot of the times I'll just stir the pot, get it going. I was like, is it something with this? Maybe something with that. I'm seeing a very vague theme here, and you got to bring it home, especially if you're not one-on-one with me and I don't know what's going on.
So what's really funny, we've mentioned demons a couple of times, but the real big message I had, it was when I opened up my store. I think it was probably open maybe about 4 or 5 years at that time. And I used to jump because I would always feel things that were negative around me. And then when I would feel it, I would jump. It would be at night, and it would just happen. And then one day I hit this point where it was 3 o'clock in the morning. I look up and I literally see this being crawling across my ceiling, and I just didn't flinch. I didn't move. I didn't react. And I said, I just had enough. It's just time for you to go. And in that moment, it became beautiful. It had this beautiful smile, not this negative smile, beautiful eyes that had this light. And it just kind of did this and literally walked through the wall. And when it did, I heard, once you learn how to love your demons, they will become your angels. And it's almost like I chose to open up a metaphysical store. So everything's going to walk through my front door. So my angels and my guides have to get me ready to handle anything that comes my way. So even the negative is there to teach us how to stand in our own power.
There's a lot going on. And when people first wake up, they're usually waking up to the lower realms, and they are experiencing these things. And I always say it's not a bad thing. Don't let it manifest into your physical life. And I think that takes some work to do. So like, just don't harass them, like defend yourself, but don't put a target on your back kind of thing too. But the idea is that there are many lessons to learn in the lower realms, and it's something that you transcend through. It comes with our own shadows. So there is a lot of mirroring. When I talk about my metaphysical and my metaphorical, same, but different. They are, what exists here will exist there. And it is the law of attraction a little bit on that stuff. And it was very difficult in some cases, but I did notice that, like, working with the one client who came to me about the demon thing, it was ideas that I noticed that, first off, it was Freddy Krueger when he was 9 years old. But I realized Freddy Krueger is a modern day archetype, and he has a good recipe for disaster. Because when I started breaking it all, or he started breaking it all down, and I started noticing these patterns, I was like, immediately after 90 minutes of him explaining the dreams, I went right back to Freddy Krueger, and I go, okay, clearly an archetype that manifested literally. And it was not just an archetype, but he has the shadow entities with the red eyes behind it, school bully, anger, and so much manifestation of imagination that brought it into even our physical aspect in our culture. Like, everybody knows Freddy Krueger is. Freddy Krueger does actually have some negative entities lingering behind him, and it's to the point where they are flipping light switches on and off and physically showing their presence in your daytime. So, maybe you shouldn't watch horror movies. And I love scary movies, and I'll watch things from an interesting perspective. But, like, I've got children too, and I'll be like, no, there are certain things that I see there's a recipe for these archetypes. And I think it's important that our culture realizes that when they're taking all of this negative stuff, turned out the man who created Freddy Krueger also had shadow people follow him around, and he was a little boy. So he mixed all of his things in a pot and created this archetype of imagination. But my client was in his 30s and a sober, normal adult with a good career. And he was literally having sleep paralysis with them walking around in his room. And it wasn't always Freddy Krueger. At some point, they just really showed what they were. They didn't even care to carry the mask anymore. And it was the shadows with the red eyes. And they were messing with him and trying to be his friend or pretend to be his friends. And even in dreams, until they would get mad at him and then show it. So it was like really weird, because normally I would say, let's make sure that's not an internal demon.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, I was like, okay, so we got a lot going on. When we look at the realms, we need to transcend beyond and understand that you don't have to stay in the ghetto necessarily of
Mm-hmm.
the astral realms. But there's a lot going on. And I do see a lot of these things in the dream sessions. That's why I was like, people will come to me and talk about things that they would never tell their therapist. Like no one's going to tell their therapist. And if someone did, I don't even know if the therapist, what they're allowed to even say about that legally. From what I understand, the government doesn't care for metaphysics. So it gets very interesting. But yeah, it's good to know that when you wake up, you are in the lower realms. The idea is to use your resources to learn to fight back and move forward and go into the higher realms. And if you ever choose to go back to a lower realm, usually going with an intention, whatever that may be. I don't really go back, but some people do have a desire to go back or maybe help or be of help. It gets very metaphysical, very soul calling, dreams.
From where I sit, part of it is, it's like, those who overcome this in a lifetime, let's say some have these, shadow beings that are following them, and then they learn how to step into their power, and then they learn how to send this away. They
Yep.
end up becoming healers for other people.
Yes.
Because people do not want to go to people who have not experienced this.
You got to have some experience.
You have to have experience. You had to have walked that path in order to be able to help other people do it, because they don't want someone to tell them what they do. They want to see someone who's actually done it
and succeeded and
right,
showing the fruits of it.
Come to the other side of it.
Yeah. So that's why I was like, I wasn't trying to like reference, but I was like, if we're looking at it as a town, you're hanging out in the ghetto, not realizing there's a different neighborhood. And like, he was like, well, why are all my friends having these higher realm experiences with alien knowledge and really cool experiences? And he's over here fighting armies of demons and whooping their butts, And I'm like, well, you don't have to continue fighting all the time. And
right.
There is a transition.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
I think what it does is it actually, I don't want to say feeds an ego on some level, but it does. What happens is, part of it is people like fighting those wars until the war kicks their ass.
Well, then it will, because the thing is it exceeds to the next levels.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was like, well, at first it'll start out small, and it's when you're kids, it's different. Everything's scary in and out, so it manifests easily. But with this, it was the idea that like the weak demons, whatever, they're just easy to kick their butts, right? But then when he started having issues with like dream police, which I'm still doing some more research on that one. That's on my homework list this week. But it turned in from dream police to like huge demons, and then sleep paralysis started kicking in. Things that were manifesting into his physical life. Those were not weak. Those ones were not weak. He was like basically kicking so many of these ones, but so he was starting to attract these other ones. And I was like, there are a lot of different layers and species in these realms. And it's good to have a target on your back. No, you want to be
multidimensional.
You want to be invisible. I was like, at this point, because they can be 1D, 2D, and 3D. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they go into 4D or not, but I was like, we got to, we're kind of on the line on that one. And yeah, it's interesting. And I never thought I would be doing this at some point in my life, but God, I would not want to do anything else, honestly. And I'm very curious and I love to learn. Mm-hmm. And it feels very fitting for my journey.
I think also we attract it to ourselves. Everyone attracts it, to themselves on some particular level of whether they want to operate in that or not. Personally, I prefer to keep that over there, and I got my boundaries up, and you can just stay over there. I don't need to operate with you.
I gave my guides rules. I said nothing without unconditional love. Seriously. And we do have a lot. It's not just our guides. We've got our ancestors are involved. Mm-hmm. Pets, anything that you've ever been close to in life that seems to have some support. And we really do have armies on our side. we just know how to use our resources and pull into that. We are a mass collective of the duality of good and bad. So the demon studies have been very interesting for me. I find that they kind of come in phases, and I always learn something very interesting and like, aha, it's just connecting it from an internal connection to an external connection. So I do feel like when an internal part is hurting or broken, or even as far as being its own demon, it will go and be attracted or it brings in others. I've noticed that, some cultures will express that mental health is from entities. No, I think experiences bring mental health. I very much see that, but I also see how it can connect on a 5D or metaphysical level.
There is a spiritual aspect of that. And one of the questions that someone asked me one time was, how do you know it is a spiritual thing that's happening to someone when you're doing energy healing or a mental? And here's my answer to that question. If it is a spiritual and I'm calling in my angels and guides and I'm working with this person and all of a sudden they get better, then it's spiritual.
Yeah.
If the story keeps repeating itself in that loop that goes
The pattern.
over and over again, then it's mental.
Yeah. I would say if it's mental, it does hold patterns. And demons will hold patterns too, but it's pattern progression. And it's a lot of it different a little bit. But no, there's a lot going on. And it's good to know how to track yourself for these patterns. It's really important to be aware, because there are things that you wouldn't have thought of as a big deal, like especially in a dream analysis that was a fragment of something. It would have made zero sense at the time. 5 months later, you look at it and you're like, oh, that's creepy, or you know what I mean, or that's beautiful, or there's something there. That's why it's like, if we cannot always analyze a dream at that session or at the moment, or if it feels like it's lingering in an answer, we leave it on the table or the back burner, and it usually comes back. So that, there's a lot, there is so much going on. I was like, I don't know how to tell the world how awesome dreams are, but like, dreams are awesome. And I'm not just saying just dreams are awesome. The whole idea of your subconsciousness is awesome. And it does relate and hold synchronicities in your daytime. A lot of the time, my clients are pulling tarot cards, trying to do meditation, which meditation I do highly suggest, because it's a perfect way to just learn to create the space, do some internal work within yourself, but also even it's the same wavelength, really. And it's a good way to practice even trying to remember dreams, if you do it early in the morning even. But yeah, it is our brains are complicated. Our identities are complicated. Our souls are complicated. There's so much going on. So it's coolest job ever.
So Chelsey, why don't you tell people about your website again and how they can reach you on Facebook?
Yes. Okay. So if you want to follow me on Facebook, it's Chelsey Turpening Coxsey. I do have a dream analysis page. It's just Chelsey Turpening Coxsey dream analysis page. Oh, I see the website popping up. Thank you. And also on my website, you will notice that I do have a lot of creative writing, which I said in the beginning. I don't know if anyone's popping in late. I got my book here, which is my own personal experiences in it's creative writing. So you got to explore it a bit, but it's all the shadow work and expressions kind of what I speak about, but in my own self-application. You'll find that on the website, as well as my dream analysis stuff. And I do have a conscious newsletter that I send out called The Conscious Collective. It's a wannabe digital magazine. We got about 20 different voices that pitch in every month, writing articles, a lot of shamans, a lot of art, a lot of logic plus imagination equals matter type of stuff. Trying to teach people, provide free information to learn and bring in the good knowledge so you can feed both wolves, silver and the black.
And if someone joined us a little bit late, tell us a little bit about your coaching. Are you still doing your coaching and your shadow work?
Yeah, I have been, yeah. And I am taking clients still. I got a lot of space available at the moment. Yeah, and I do have the sessions on there. I think they're $75 for a 90-minute session. And the 90 minutes, I swear, it's very worth it. And I won't go less than 90 because an hour is too short.
Wow. Well, and that's awesome. So, Joy, tell them where they can find you.
So you can find me in Louisville, Texas at Miracles of Joy Metaphysical Store. My website is www.miraclesofjoy.org. That's going to tell you all the events that we have and what we're doing out of the store. But I also have miraclesofjoy.net, and that's all of our products that are online. My next big thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm actually doing a sacred journey to Teotihuacan, Mexico, which is going to be the last week of September. We're taking a group to the pyramids. We're going to spend a whole week together just doing all kinds of metaphysical things. And we do still have some openings if anyone's interested in joining us for that trip. Now, that's funny, Chelsey, because I dream of Teo all the time. It's like if it was any place and the people that are there or people that I've gone with in the past, I have all kinds of dreams there at Teo.
Ooh, follow me on Facebook. Let's connect.
So, Cassie, what are you doing?
Well, so as you know, I do the websites and graphics and all the things for the spiritual light workers. And so I've actually we've grown, we've kind of expanded. We can now offer like social media, and we can offer, I've recently been able to add like SEO work and things like that to my repertoire. So it's kind of Stargazers Unite is really kind of becoming a kind of powerhouse for being able to manage not just your website and not just, a couple of graphics or flyers or things that you need, but it also is about helping you be able to get out there in a much more rounded way. Mm-hmm. Very exciting.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give a shameless plug to Tracy since she's not actually not here.
Shameless plug to Tracy. Tracy, we love you.
So Tracy is actually working out of Miracles of Joy. She's teaching 2 classes on a monthly basis. She's teaching a psychic development class as well as a mediumship development class. And I believe we have her scheduled for a medium workshop that's coming up later this year. You can find more information about Tracy at miraclesofjoy.org. Or you can find more information about Tracy because Tracy has written a book recently. And put that up again for me, Cassie, Tracy. Yes. TheRedCouchMedium.com. Yes. And I've known Tracy for probably close to 8 or 9 years at this point.
Yeah. And also one other thing that I will add is because Tracy does retreats and things like that, joining us. But Tracy does retreats to Belize, and the next one is coming up here from May 4th to May 10th in 2024. It is a great opportunity. It is a great trip. We have such a good time every time we go. It's just like she chocks it full of like just so many cool things to do and see, and the group of people that came on the last trip was just phenomenal. So definitely something to keep in mind.
Sacred journeys are amazing things because you bond with those people. You'll never forget those people for the rest of your life.
That's beautiful. I remember watching it on Facebook a few months ago, and I was like, "Oh, you guys are having so much fun."
well, and and it's so reasonably priced. She does a good job of really making it very easy for people to be able to say yes to it.
I would say a retreat's always an ordeal to plan. She's got a good setup down there, though. I know Donna, she's one of my friends.
Well, I want to thank both of y'all for coming on and being here tonight. And Joy, any last words you've got?
Chelsey, it was just amazing speaking with you and getting, your opinion on some of this dream work. I think it's just it's fantastic what you're doing.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you for having me here. This is a really good conversation. I enjoyed it. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, everybody have a good night. We will see you back in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone.
Bye.